How's it going, everyone? Welcome, Eulier Gonzalez here. And today let's going to now dive deep into this particular course. But the TLDR is that in this video, I want to add now the Google Analytics layer to my repo with the help of Claw. So this repo is just a way of taking notes and improve my communication skills, which is a very relevant in today's world more than ever. That you not only be able to describe is the technical aspect or of the thing that you know, but you also can describe that in a very systematic way. Now, uh, with that, so that's what we're gonna do. Let's get into Claw. All right. And actually, I was using his cursor right now. I asked him to help me to define a plan for that, which is, he says that it will take like 2 hours roughly, this implementation, and I really love that. So it's here, okay. So the question was to say here. There you go. So, so the custom events I want to track off, but this is something for here. All right. It was like this, right? So I want to implement a free analytic solution right now. And what approach would you recommend? Describe before implementing. So for a free analytic solution that you can implement right now, I recommend Google Analytics 4 with privacy conscious configuration. So why G4 is the best free option? Because it contains this. So completely free with generous limits, Next.js integration via Next third party, which is quite good. Static site compatible, work with your build export, which is very specific to this project. Internationalization tracking built in, perfect for your AS and ES sites, the multilingual site. Enriched reporting dashboard, event tracking for learning progress, and real-time data available immediately. Considerations require privacy policy for GDPR compliance, cookie consent from European users, and Google data collection privacy trade-off. So, despite that, all right, here I want to now implement is those features, and then I ask Claw here this. So I tell them, hey, the custom events I want to track off are core section, average time, learning resource click, language switching, and time-based engagement milestones. Why will be the approach? Okay, what will be the approach step by step to implement in Jesus? What will be the approach step by step into implement uh, GA4? Describe it before doing anything. So here's a complete step by step approach to implement GA4 with your custom events. And then he described that. Let me actually, I wanna do this, get status. All right. I want to here create now a new branch to say this is the analytics. Okay. Analytics. All right. Set analytics. Or you can say, no, just analytics. This is the feature. All right. The analytics. Right. We made a branch from that. Implementation plan. So step 1, GA4 account setup. Step 2, the next integration, like the Lego piece. And then once you integrate that, you need to set the implementation, base implementation, so add Google Analytics components for this. App locale layout, and configure G tag for custom events, create analytics utility functions, add privacy friendly settings. And once you set the implementation, which is something that you are describing here, okay, in configure G tag, create analytics. This kind of configuration might take some time. as well as the utility functions. This section is something that might take quite a bit. And the other is a step 4, custom events implementation. Okay. So, alright, event 1, core section average time spent. So trigger page visibility API plus before onload and data page path, time spent, and locale. Exactly. Data page path, time spent, and locale. The other is implementation. Track entry or exit times per page. Event 2, learning resource click. It say, hey, trigger click handlers on external links. Data, link URL, resource type, and source page. Implementations, automatic tracking for external link. Interesting. So here we're tracking entry and exit time per page. That's right. This is the implementation path for all these specific events. And what are the data that we need to? Okay, page visibility API plus before unload. The other is click handler on external link that triggers. Language switches is locale change events. This is something that we can use with the hook from the internationalization, so we can query data to that, so we can talk to him. Yes, so locale change events from locale to locale, page context. The implementation here is hook into Next internationalization navigation. I don't even need to tell me what to do because I know what it is. Because I know what is the foundation of this. The other is the event 4, time-based engagement milestone. So trigger timer-based tracking. All right. Oh, this is time-based engagement milestone. Time-based engagement milestone. That's interesting. How will you think about this? You can is. Hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting. This time-based engagement milestone. Trigger time-based tracking. 30, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And data milestone. Milestone reach, total time, page context. Implementation. Progressive timers with cleanup. Progressive timers with cleanup. Oh, so you are, but this is milestone reach, total time, and page content. Okay, this is if you want to actually figuring out more about this. That's very powerful. Perhaps I'm not going to do this. All right, I'm not going to implement this the event 4, but at least just this first 3 because I want to then move on to the next topic, right? And then the step 5, which is event schema design. We're here in this step 4 is the definition of the custom event implementation and then the event schema design. So cursor section time tracking. Hola.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días, con Arturo González Milano, ¿puede ser?
Correcto.
¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo está? Mi nombre es Max.
And we're back, right? It's because I hired a new internet provider, so yeah. So this is the step 5, event schema design, core section time tracking. So we're going to define is the data that we want to track, event name, core section time, section name, time spent, in locale, in page path. The data for learning resource click, you already have this, event name, resource URL, resource type, Huberman, Coursera, YouTube, and external. What? Resource type. Okay. But this is learning resource click. Of course, this is the resource that we have right now. This is the resource that we have right now as a way to have much okay. Okay, that's good because if you want to have much more refined data on this, you can. Language switching, pretty straightforward. We can just talk to the internationalization hook and uh, yes, language switching. The other is engagement milestones. So the event milestone here. I don't think we are able to implement this, uh, but in any case, step 6, implementation file structure. Okay, so this is the file structure that we're going to implement here. So under the lib, we're going to follow is the analytics. So we're using lib because this is the folder structure of the next projects. All right, so analytics, time tracker, event handlers. Also, you have now the components here. Okay, and on the component, you have now the analytic provider and the link tracker. All right, this analytic provider is quite interesting. How we going to implement that? And the others are hooks. Use time tracking and use analytic. The thing here is that I want to refine this a little bit. Time-based engagement milestone. Um, okay, let me refine this. Okay, so uh, let me refine this a bit more. So I don't want to implement is this time-based engagement milestone. Not at all. Just Coursera section average time spent, learning resource click, and language switching. Just simple, basic stuff, basic stuff. We have a timeline. I want to dedicate this, and that'll be all. All right. All right. Good. Now, so the process was refined way much more. All right. Exactly. So I don't want to implement any time base right now. So here's the refined step-by-step approach to implement Go4 with your 3 specific custom events. All right. And there you got it. So we're going to implementation plan. Step 1, set up the Gang account, then the integration and the custom event implementation, which is using the use effect for that. Here is this course sections average time spent. Track how long users spend on each course page. Page load plus unload visibility change. Implementation, hook into page navigation events, use effect with cleanup, track entry time on mount, and calculate duration of on mount. The other is event 2, learning resource click, what targets and implementation. That's interesting how it defines this, what target links and implementations. The language switching, track when users switch between English and Spanish, trigger local navigations event, and so on and so forth, right? And step 4, event schema design. Core section time tracking is this. The data structure of the data, the data structure. And then implementing the file, which is more flat, right? You will have now the analytics, which is the integration, the track link component with analytics, and some couple hooks to do the page time tracking and the language switching. Good. Component integration points. So you have now the root layout, introduction, external link, language switcher, and future course page. This is the okay. Step 6: component integration points. We're going to integrate that in the root layer. Add the Google Analytics component. Makes sense. At the particular component, you say add the time tracking hook. Externally replace with tracked link component and language switchers to add change tracking. Okay, so we are going to do this. Add time tracking hook, replace with tracking link components, and add locale change tracking. In future course page, reuse time tracking hook. Privacy configuration, you put this, GAS settings, enable IP anonymization, disable advertising personalization, and set data retention for 14 months. Code configurations, respect DNAT headers. Interesting, I am not quite familiar with this. Gratefully degradation without G4A, and no PII collection. Some stuff that we're gonna learn about the privacy, okay, and then the testing strategy, development, GAI4 debug mode, browser console, real time GAI4 real time reporter verification, like this, event validation, check custom events appear correctly, cross locale, test both EN and S tracking, and this is for testing strategy. The development, real time, event validation, and cross locale. And technical implementation detail, time tracking approach, link tracking approach, and locale tracking approach. So for the time tracking, you use a use effect when the component is mounted, use effect on component mount. So track the visibility page, visibility API for tab switches, send event on mount or visibility change, okay, handle navigation, Next.js router event. This is for time tracking approach, link tracking and locale tracking. Why time tracking approach? I think this is for how many times users are in there, in that page. Link tracking approach, this is useful for me as a way to see how many of them actually click on one of those research. All right, to see if they actually are interested into that. The other is the locale tracking approach. How many of them actually go from one to another language, right? The switching. But these three data, these three events, is just to have a sense of how now the marketing actually wants to keep track of, and not only a marketing but also myself. So as a way to understand that how the users are actually is, well, now pun intended, or quite redundant, using the app. So expected data insights, that's what core section analytics, most engaging content sections, average learning time per topic, exactly, average learning time per topic, locale specific engagement patterns. Mm-hmm. So content optimization opportunities. But most of the time is most engaging content section, average learning time per topic, locale specific engagement patterns, and there is a content optimization opportunity here. Is that how many of them are actually is clicking here and then take some data out of this. And resource engagement. This is okay. Core section analytics, resource engagement, most clicked learning research, external content effectiveness, use learning journey pattern, internationalization usage. What is preferred? English versus Spanish. Obviously, English, but I want to know from which demographic. Okay, language switching behavior, content gaps between locales, regional user patterns, And well, this is the implementation timeline here. Setup 1, 2, 10 minutes. Custom events, step 3. And I think let's get into this. All right. So go on with step. Right now we have is um, 8 steps. All right, we have 8 steps. Go on with step 1 and 2. All right. Create Google Analytics for account and get measured ID. All right. It say, hey, go to this place. He already add the next public, yeah. Go to this place. Open up. Yes. Okay. Go to there. Right. Go to the analytics here. Mhm. In occasions, we send emails to inform Google Analytics. No, however, we want to use to choose the best communication sites. Please choose nothing. Okay. So, follow me here. No, not right now. Google Analytics, la comparativa son métricas que le permiten comparar el rendimiento de su empresa con el de otras empresas en su sector. Analytics clasifica a su empresa según la categoría de su sector y el contenido que se encuentra en su sitio web o aplicación. Puede consultar las comparativas de su propiedad en la tarjeta de resumen de la página principal. Empezar vista guiada. Esta insignia. Esta insignia indica si las comparativas están habilitadas en la métrica seleccionada. Haga clic para obtener más información sobre su propiedad. Si las comparativas de esta actividad, la tarjeta de resumen muestra lo siguiente. Línea de tendencia de su propiedad, medianas de empresas similares, rangos de empresas similares en el percentil 25 de 75. Siguiente. Para encontrar métricas que tengan datos de comparativas disponibles de su propiedad, haga clic en el nombre de una métrica en particular, como las comparativas. Más información. Benchmarking. Pero este es el G4. Ok. This is G4. Informatics. Small. Exacto. Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect. So we are creating is a new app here. Okay. Just gonna make this. Okay. Creación de propiedades. Ujú. Okay. Okay. Cuenta y propiedad. Account and properties. Okay. Okay. How many properties do I have? Details of a company. Mm-hmm. Business. With analytic terms of service. The OSI platform. SDK server software third party. You have property analytics. Fees and services. Member account password and security. Non-exclusive license. Confidentiality and beta features. Information rights and publicity. Privacy. Indemnification. Disclaimer of warranty, limitations of liabilities. Proprietary rights notice. U.S. government. Modification in terms of services. Miscellaneous applicable law and venue. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's only web. Okay, configure your flow of data, which is interesting. Oh, look at this. Look at all of the things that we are measuring here. Look at all of the things that we are measuring by default. Look at all of the things that we are measuring by default. View, the movement, click out or outbound, search during site, we don't have any of that. Interactions, video interactions, download files, and form interactions. That's interesting. Alright, you can also is doing that. Alright. We're measuring is this by basic. So now that we already provide is the website that we want to keep track of. Alright? It is time for us to give us is a tag. Alright? Click start measuring or create account. Account setup, account name CSS for JavaScript nodes. Data sharing settings configure as desired. Property setup. Here you got it. I already put this as personal. Things it is. Business details, industry education, and small. Business objectives, select examining user behavior, exactly. And platform, choose the website details, website URL, universal domains, stream name, CSS for developer nodes. That's right. And copy the measurement ID. It will look like this. The measurement ID. Alright, which is this. Alright. This is next public measurement ID. Alright. Would you like me to create and edit this? Please be my guest. Alright. Ready.m production. This is it. It also add that in production. Okay. Let us add that to production and to the local here. Right, okie dokie. There you got it. Now, we are about is to install the third-party library, which is the next third parties. So before going into that, right? So before going into that, let's explore what this next third party actually it is. All right. It's still experimental and under active development. It is quite not recommended to still use that. Interesting. Hmm. Hmm. Next third parties. Okay, next third parties. The next script component currently provides developers with an API that allows them to control when third-party script loads. But we can make this process simpler for many popular third-party providers by providing pre-configured wrappers components. Maintenance. One of the issues of third-party code is a centralized model is dealing with the maintenance burden. Maintenance of next third party will have to continuously monitor and update underlying loading techniques as a third party themselves change and adapt to newer web practices. To solve this and to prevent duplication, identical loading recommendations for the same third party in different places, the Chrome Aurora team is working on a third party capital. What the French does? Third party capital. A library that provides best practice for loading popular third parties. Mhm. Um, an AMPN library and consolidate best practice for popular third party in a single place. For Next.js, we have the options of either rely on this library or creating entirely custom components or using either of the two approach depending on the resource itself. The demo is here in the link. So here is a link. So they're going to provide. Okay, that's quite interesting. That's very interesting. So let's actually follow me here. And giving me now a second here. And we're back. So, well, actually, the setting actually changed a lot. Well, now finally I have internet. So, yay! That's right. All right. So, what we're looking here is this thing's called third-party capital. And this is quite interesting because as I ask Claw to develop a roadmap about how can we implement its GA4, this Google Analytic tool, in our project, at least for basic stuff, which is, hey, I want to know how many of our users actually, how long our users are spent on a model, or uh, how many of them now switch between language and spend the season in that, and how many of them actually do make click or make click of these external resources. So why this is important? This is as a way to at least put in this basic analytic tools. It actually helped me to implement of others, which they are not open source. They are open source but not free. But they are now focusing a lot in privacy. However, because I don't have any, so my budget is pretty limited. Now, I decide to go with Google Analytics, right? The GA4. So, because of that, and since we are using Next as a way to uh, add the extension or add the third-party libraries extensions to our application, and since Next, and I really love about this, right? Since Next uh, on their what is this? This is exactly. So since Next say, hey, you know what? Uh, since they're, let me actually read about this because I think this is quite appealing here. This is also an initiative that is going on here. Now, this was opened up almost 2 years ago. I really love about this. This is a relief for candidate. I'm not sure if this is still now working in progress among this. And let me see what is the current state of this. The Google Maps embedding unfortunately doesn't have the title option, which then throws the following accessibility warning. Frame or frame does not have a title here. This is a critically and easy param to include. When is this being updated? So so the idea of this is 2 years ago, the goal is to improve the user and developer experience of loading popular third-party libraries in Next.js application. And this is quite interesting because this is this RFC was open as a way from a software developer at Google. Now, if we open up here the discussion here, especially with the ideas like this, I want to know is at least the latest activity for that. So you get a lot of this, and because there you got it right. Interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. And since the idea, and I really love about it, is actually on the top 15, right? 20. In the top 20 items, which is good. Um, Now, this is how you can add easily, quote, quote, third-party libraries, right? So 95%, according to this, and according to console of Google here, migration tool that you got. What is this? Number of Next.js site has. Okay. Run the query. Holy moly. Access denied table. Summary 23. User does not have permission to query archive summary page. Okay. In any case. But they are querying is the archive. Holy moly. They are querying is the archive from here. Look at this. Somebody requesting this. They are doing is this. Oh my god. I get it. All right. So, based on this, based on that particular query, that all right, it's a public query that you can do, and I am not authorized for that, which is interesting. All right. Maybe with this, I can. Okay. Mm. 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 Mm-hmm. Okay. By the way, I'll be right back. All right. So we are back, right? So since the idea of this is to uh, integrate now GA4 into our existing note-taking apps, and because in Next, the way of how you can do that, since Next actually follow is the React way of doing a server-side rendering, so it not only provides navigation on the client but also on the server, and because they want us to mix this between, now the idea is to use the existing JavaScript knowledge for both the front end and the server. So based on that premise, and because sometimes you want to load script on the front end and sometimes on the back end. So when it comes to the front end with React, you can either specify then using the use client directive to tell that this will be loading at the browser. Now, because of that, and since they are now providing is another abstraction, nice little abstractions of how you can now import your JavaScript tags, your models, right? Particularly third-party libraries. And the way how this traditionally has been worked is you have now an HTML and the CSS and the JavaScript that depend of how you want to load these particular files in JavaScript, since this is now a blocking operations, because now JavaScript needs to first parse that document uh, and then uh, create the abstract syntax tree. Again, that go beyond the scope of today's, but once it parse that document and aka create internally a intermediate representation, and then internally create now a representation of the code close to binary that can be executed by the JavaScript engine, which is the engine that lives in your browser. So this particular process is blocking. So parsing JavaScript and aka execute JavaScript is a blocking operations. So because at the end of the day, JavaScript it use a single thread to run that. Okay, so this script language doesn't benefit from the multi-threading programming paradigms like C++ or C or Java. So because of this, now this is one of the limitations. So the idea here is this particular script that is being loading at the HTML, and therefore we want is to uh, do that in the most performance and time affecting manner and when that is needed. So there's some best practice that comes in. So there's some best practice that the folks in Next, in combination with or in collaboration with the Google team, has created, right? So because which is the maintenance burden, since since creating is a so the maintenance burden is because you depend of how many third-party libraries you include in your application, and the more you rely on third-party libraries, the more you will have to go after each one of them, especially when they update it. Uh, so this is something that increases the development time. However, if you use now some agents like Cloud Code and so on and so forth, that's actually something that is gonna make your life easy, right? So, because of that, all right, the team, this is Google, actually create now an initiative called Third Party Capital, right? Which is a way of how you can now follow a best practice to load third party libraries. So I think this is quite interesting initiative. It is quite this is something that is recent. Is This is mind blowing. All right. So the goal of this is to provide best practice for loading popular third-party libraries in a single place, whether it is for JavaScript and PHP. Okay. So there is a large cross-functional Chrome initiative that aims to provide third-party resource loading on the web. One part of this effort is to provide a default set of recommendations or components to developers, and this component will help developers sequence and fetch popular third-party resource at the right time to minimize the overall impact to page performance. So the third-party capital is an experimental library, and its specification is subject to change. The loading recommendation for each third-party resource is defined with the following JSON schema. You have the ID, you have the description, website, HTML, the append of the element in that, the style sheet, scripts, all right, how you're gonna load this, what is the key or the URL, the patterns, the options, right? Key code patterns, optionals, and so on and so forth, right? But the idea here is that they providing you to a component, an API, to load that popular third-party libraries, such as Google Analytics, Google Maps, and YouTube embedded, right? So with Google Analytics, they're using is now a web worker. I am not quite familiar with web workers, all right? But web workers are a way of how you can is tasks that you can tell the browser to do in the background, right? So to prevent blocking the main thread, and as a way to offloading uh, payloads or some heavy lifting things. So, for example, is parsing and execute JavaScript code. So that's what we use is this web workers. That's interesting. That's interesting. So a good question might be here is to say, hey, what is web workers? And it is safe to say that web workers are. So it is safe to say that web workers is a way to offload task to prevent uh, to avoid blocking the main thread. I will say yes. Yes, that's exactly right. So the web worker are especially designed to run JavaScript code in a separate thread, or in other words, in a separate processes. Since uh, JavaScript process uh, and thread are the same, it is so anytime we use a web worker, we are creating a a new process in our CPU, right? Not quite. There is an important distinction here between JavaScript execution model and what's happening at the operating system. JavaScript threading model, JavaScript itself is a single thread in each execution context. The main thread runs your code in you are okay. Don't manipulate, etc. And the web worker creates separate JavaScript execution context. What happened at the OS level is web worker typically create threads, not new process. And here is the difference. Thread versus processes. In practice with web worker, your tab is usually one process exactly. The main JavaScript thread and web worker threads run within the same browser process. They share some resource but have separate JavaScript execution contexts. That's interesting. Much more efficient than creating a new process. Mm-hmm. Creating thread is much faster and lightweight than creating processes, of course. Threads can share certain resources while still providing isolation for JavaScript execution, less memory overheat compared to separate process. Exactly. So web workers give you the benefit of parallel execution without the heavy cost of spawning an entire new process. The browsers handle the threading implementation details while giving you a clean JavaScript API to work with. So in other words, so they are JavaScript threads model. Mm-hmm. So JavaScript itself is a single thread in each execution context. The main thread runs the UI code, and the web worker creates separate JavaScript execution context. So it is like each tab has so it's like each tab has two processes executing, one for the main thread, and the other for the web worker. One tab, one process. Thread structure within a trap process. Oh, that's interesting. But again, this is something. So this is something browser specific. So this is something browser specific, right? So this is something browser specific. So this is something browser specific. Since JavaScript doesn't since JavaScript is a single thread language, is a parse single thread language. Exactly. JavaScript, the language, is indeed single thread, but web workers are browser specific APIs that give you the multi-threading capabilities. That solved the mystery. That solved the mystery. So that solved the mystery. So okay. So Node.js has worker threads, module, similar concept, API difference. You also use OS threads under the hood. The key insight is JavaScript itself has no concept of thread. Exactly. It is the runtime environment that provides that capability. So, interesting. So because this is environment specific, okay. So since this is environment specific, in the case of browsers like Chrome, one tab has a single, it has the main UI thread. Exactly, one tab, which is one process, okay, contains the main UI thread and the web workers thread. Okay. Exactly. We're working 1, 2, and 3, but all of them are running in the same process. That's interesting. Other browser threads, networking and compositor, and so on and so forth. Chrome architecture specifically. So that's interesting. Okay, so that actually solved that mystery. All right, mystery solved. This is something that is there you go. So this is something that is provided by the browsers, by the environment, in the same tab that allow you to know, that provide is to the browser specific multi-threading capabilities. All right, but the JavaScript per se is now a language that is single thread. It's a parse single thread language, right? So that's quite interesting because all of this layer of abstraction is a way to demystify this. The TLDR of this is that because now we have is so the thing here is that these third-party libraries that now is an idea on next discussions to say, hey, we want you to provide is now a way, a standardized way for developers to integrate and to maintain the the third-party libraries uh, in a very easy way by providing is a component or an API that you can now interact to this. So most of this we're gonna provide is the most common one, all right? Which is from Google Analytics, which is using a web worker, all right? Which is instead of actually letting the browser parse that JavaScript code in the main thread is just offloading that to the web workers, and that's beautiful. That's a beautiful stuff. And then you also have is this Google Maps embedded. They're not offloading that, or the YouTube embedded as well. So that solved the mystery here, and the reason why we are actually cloud cloud code actually recommend is using this. So far so good. Here we are. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So yes, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. They're now in the version 15. The problem with all of this library is that it's going to be quite hard to maintain. So, locally for us, we have Claw that help us here how to fix that. As long as you know what you're doing. So once we install this, it's going to proceed with it. All right. Mhm. It actually now installed that. It's going to create the root layer for our to add that component and then provide that tag so we can now have access that particular library, third-party library, across the entire render tree, okay, or in other words, into an entire React application, okay, which is exactly is going to detect that, all right. If you have now in the process.next, hey, I want you to now include this provider here. But we are now is interesting. Yeah, but in the local layout, all right. In the local layout, exactly, we already import is the Google Analytics. That's right. And here we're about to do this. Okay. Let's get into this. Let's go to build this to test the build. All right. It's testing the build to see if that actually works as expected. Mm-hmm. Okay. So once you complete the Go account setup and replace the tag with your actual measurement ID in both environment file, the basic tracking will be live. All right. Ready to proceed with step 3? Go on. So we have now a measurement ID for that. Go on with step 3. It's a custom event implementation when you are. Here it defines the utility where you say, hey, let me declare now a global window interface called gtag, okay, which is exactly what happened when we load that when we load that Google GA4, all right. It will now append that variable into the global, okay, and then you say check if GA4 is available and enable. It say, hey, I want to check if the window is not defined, if the window is a function, and what it's doing is coerce this. It's coercing this. It's checking to say, hey, I'm going to coerce that because this is quite interesting what it's doing. This double negation is coercing that. In JavaScript, it's used to convert a value to its Boolean equivalent. I am not a big fan, actually, but again, I know what you're doing. But I will prefer, but I definitely will prefer to use other kind of exactly, to use other kind of them, other kind of coercions, bro. Logical operators, big int, string operator. Because what it's doing here, but anyway, because what it's doing here is coerce this value, right? It's saying, hey, whatever value you get here, I want to coerce this into a boolean, and there is a finite list of things that decide is truthy or falsy value. It is great to learn the falsy value. So if this is empty, if this is undefined, null, an empty string, false, zero, -0, in NaN, all right, this is now a false value, right? However, if it's anything outside of this, it becomes a truthy value. So that's what it's doing here. That's interesting. So here it's saying is this. It's like, hey, we're gonna return this window. I wanna check if we are actually in the client side, and we already have that element mounted, and therefore I want to check if we have in our process variable, if the variable exists. Base event tracking functions. In core sections, time tracking. Oh, here is defining is all of this. All right. You went all the way up. Implement core section time tracking here. Okay. Okay, so base event tracking function. So here you say, I'm gonna define is this arrow function that first is gonna detect the event name plus the parameter, alright? And then if the analytic is enabled, which means, hey, if that is detected, this is the helper function. Hey, if that is detected, or I mean, is this doesn't exist? It's because we are in the development. Log console in development for debugging. Mm-hmm. If the analytics is not enabled, it means that we are now in the development mode and we want to check that. So to verify this, okay, that's why interesting in this analytic here. So if this is false, it means that GA4 is not enabled. However, we're gonna mimic that base event tracking function, and here track event is going to now say window.gTag event and event name. Oh, but this is in development. Mm-hmm. This is in development here. So anytime we call this function, it's tracking this function. It's like mimicking this. Exactly. Send to process.nextPublicGA measuring ID with the parameters. And otherwise catch any errors if this doesn't exist. Also log GM4 tracking error. Okay, one of them is the tracking event for development, and it is and for production. So event 1 core section time tracking. Oh, this is the function here. Exactly. So this is the pattern that we're gonna pass here to say, hey, I want to now track this event, and this is the parameter that I wanna track off, right? I want to send this as it is. Exactly. This is interesting. This is great because you don't want this to actually in development is trigger all of that, right? Trigger all of that false positives. Makes sense. Track course time, track event, course section time. This is another one, track resource. Actually, the pattern is the same. New URL patterns.resource URL host name. That's beautiful. All right. Then you have now here's a track language switch pattern from locale to locale and current one, which is parameters we're gonna pass through that. Additional GA4 parameters. We also need to check if that actually exists. And then the helper function to get the current section named from path name. So here you say remove local prefix. Okay, path without locale, and more path to readable section name. So what is it? What is the main goal of this function? Get section name. Which section? Oh, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. Okay. I get it. So I want to get this section name, but I want to get that. So you will have to maintain this. So there are a couple of places where we need to maintain is the analytics here. So what it is, we have this on a single place, all right, and then more section as you create that, that's right, and then you're going to return now is the path without locale, or path without locale, replace this, or otherwise it is unknown. Let me, what if identify 1, 2. Come on with the French things thing you do. Okay. What's next? What's next? Exactly. Get section name. Get resource type. Okay. Okay. Get resource type. Remember lab. Oh, okay, okay. Get research type. I don't think this is something that will be quite. Mm. Return human lab, YouTube, and Coursera. So you can here add this tags to this helper function to identify resource type from URL. So far so good, right? I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel here. Not an interesting in doing so. But what you did here is to define all of the different analytics. So here we first is say, let me identify where we are. If we are in the client side, I want to verify that that particular analytics exists. That's one. Second, I want to verify that we are. So I want to verify in which environment we are. We are in the development, we are in the production. If we are in the production, I want to actually send all of that. All right. So if it's not, we are then in the development. And this is now the list of all of the events, the custom events we want to actually keep track of. All right. So far so good. So far so good. All right. So go ahead. Go ahead. I don't have any issues with that. Not at all. And here we are about to create now. This is for the analytics, and here we're gonna create is the hooks. The hooks for use page analytics. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So anytime that you want to synchronize with external systems, we use this effect for that. And we say, hey, this will be called is use page analytics. You're just going to get is the parameter for that, and now check that. So this use page analytics is going to not only load that, all right, not only load that, handle visibility change as it is, track mouse movement and keyword activity, user engagement, reset activity timer, initialize start time, accumulated last active time is visible. So we are doing this to track entry time. Okay, you want to track entry time. Okay, I think this is a very useful hook. Good, good. Because since this is gonna be now trigger anytime we get into a page, and after the page gets rendered, it's gonna trigger this schedule task or this schedule effect. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Again, this is to track entry time, start time, accumulated time, last active time, and it's visible. And this is what it's gonna send initially. Track page visibility change tab switches. And then you have this track mouse movement and keyword activity, user engagement, reset activity timer is visible, delete timeout, activity timeout. You reset activity timer, and then it says send analytic data. Ah, there you got it. Send the analytic data. So add event listeners, visibility change, mouse move, key press, scroll, and click. Visibility change. I am not quite familiar that that event actually exists. Visibility, page visibility. hmm The page visibility APIs provide events you can watch for to know when a document page becomes visible or hidden, as well as features to look at the current visibility stage of the page. This is especially useful for saving resource and improving performance by letting a page avoid performing unnecessary tasks when the document is invisible. So the is visible state or visible change. Interesting. How old is this API? It's quite old. It's quite old. Timing elements visibility with interception observer API. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Intersection observer API. Mm-hmm. Visibility state on an iframe are the same as the padding document. Hiding an iframe using CSS properties such as display none doesn't trigger visibility events or change the state of that document contained within the frame. Use cases. A site has an image carousel that shouldn't advance to the next slide unless the user is viewing the page. An application showing a dashboard information doesn't want to poll the server for updates when the page is invisible. A site wants to switch off sounds when a device is in standby mode. User push power buttons to turn screen off. Developer has historically used imperfect proxies to detect this. For example, watching for blur and focus events. On the window help you to know when your page is not active page, but it does not tell you that your page is actually hidden to the user. The page visibility API address this, while on blur and on focus will tell you if the user switch windows. It doesn't necessarily mean it is hidden. Page only becomes hidden when the user switch tabs or minimize the browser's window. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the whole point of this is for this. Page visibility tells you when the user switch tab or minimize the browser window containing the tab. Okay, interesting. For very specific use cases. I wasn't aware. I wasn't well aware of. I wasn't well aware of the page visibility API. Hey, is this still visible to the user? In other words, it is a current tab. It is a current active tab, and it's not minimized. The window. Holy fucking browser, bro. All right, that's what it's for. Visibility change, handle visibility, reset activity, and handle visibility. It's a handle visibility. It's gonna check for the document. Is the document dot hidden? That become hidden exactly. Pause timer. Accumulated time is different from now. Exactly. Is the tab become hidden? Pause the timer. If visible, current, and last active time is current, so make the accumulated time equal to the current plus now minus last active time. Because what you're doing here is just to detect. Okay. It's just to detect the last time or the last couple seconds that you're going to add to the accumulated time. Mm-hmm. Is visible occurring is equal to false, else tab becomes visible, resume timers. Last active time dot current is equal to now, and is visible current equal to is visual, actually is visible exactly. So if the document is visible, there you get it. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that it detects that through the document, through accessing to the global object here at the client side. Track mouse movement in keyboard activity user engagement. Let activity timeout. Let activity timeout be the Node.js timeout, and then reset activity timer. Okay, okay. Because this now are using is intervals. Mm-hmm. Clear timeout activity and activity timeout. User inactive for 30 seconds. Pause accumulation. So every 30 seconds is going to now poll for that. User inactive for 30 seconds. Pause accumulation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Reset activity timer. There you got it. It's visible the current. Last active time the current date dot now. Clear timeout activity timeout. Activity timeout is equal to set timeout. Track mouse movement and keyword activity. And then you send the analytics to that. By calling is a track course item here, which is what it's gonna do with the live analytic, because that live analytic actually is handling is that is handling is that it is handling is the logic to send the data for that event. Mm-hmm. And here we have the listeners that is gonna be run by the time we call this. All right. And also we need to exactly the cleanup function. Mm, 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 All of these are being run on the inside of the use effect exactly. All of these are being executed inside of the use effect. Makes sense. Makes sense. So by the time that because this particular hooks is gonna be mounted on uh, per page exactly. It's gonna be mounted per page, so we want to do that. Reset activity timer and cleanup function uh, runs on page unload or component unmounted. Exactly. So when the component is unmounted or is unloaded, then this is what we want to do. Exactly. Final analytics, send analytics, and then you got it. Handle page unload, handle before unload, send analytic, and with add event listener before unload. It's interesting because it's all of these are handled is before unload. Before unload, all of these are being handled there. And when the path name and the locale change, there you got it. Alright. So the entire code is gonna be run here. You are now storing data here. It's gonna be run here and send analytics. It's gonna be run here. Here you say reset activity timer. and handle before unload and send analytics. Clean up and clean up. Okay, and you're only going to run those functionality at that moment. Okay, okay. So in other words, we are with this use effect. We're describing is the variables that we want to store. Okay, the data that we want to store. Uh, the logic that we want to keep track of. The exactly the logic that we want to keep track of, which is send the analytics. All right, send the analytics and reset. So reset and send the analytic. All right. Reset activity and send the analytic. They only send if user spend at least 5 seconds on the page. Mm, exactly. Only send if user spend at least 5 seconds on the page. Mm-hmm. And then you're gonna run this only when exactly. So when the visibility change, you're gonna verify if that is available. And similar with the reset activity timer for this particular event. Mm-hmm. So once you define is the logic to keep track of the activity in this page, and then you define is the uh, so the activity for this page and the activity for this page and so the activity for this page, yeah, so the activity for this page and uh, Jesus, the activity for this page, okay, and only you're gonna send is data after 5 seconds, okay, and the other is the the activity for this page, okay, yeah, the activity for this page. And okay, the activity of this page, and that is the user mouse. Some if the user mouse or do a key press. Okay, so if the user mouse over or do a key press or scroll or click, exactly. That's when we're gonna reset the timer. The activity timer makes a lot of sense. And the other is the using the page visibility API here. But it's interesting because it's not using the no it is using it visibility change visibility change. It is using the visibility API to actually detect uh, if this particular tab is active. All right, if this is active and it is not minimized, okay, and also uh, the the activity of the user, whether it's on the mouse or key or scroll or click. Okay, so you want to reset the activity timer here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because it is this code assumes that the user is gonna be there for a while. Mm-hmm. This is assuming that the user is gonna be there for a while, reading the content. Okay. It's gonna call reset activity timer, which is of course gonna clean that up. It's gonna check that if this is visible, it's gonna now update that. Last time active, clear that out, and then run that activity timeout here. That makes a lot of sense. And then after that, so after we define is the data that we want to store for tracking the activity, for how long the user is being there, and also the so whether it's it moves the mouse or click or press a key on the keyboard or scroll, and the other is if the user now is in the particular tab, right? That's we using the page, using the pagination API. That's interesting. Once all of that is done, all right. So I want to now use this particular hook in a page that is going to now send that metrics to Google G4. You're gonna send that to G4 at production. Mm-hmm. And then mimic the behavior in development. Okay. Be my guest, sir. Exact. And this must be in a client component. So now we are creating is another hook for tracking the link. Okay. So one way to do this is to provide that, or it's external, right? This might not be a hook, by the way. It can be only just a single function, handle click. href, link, exactly. hrefs, children, class name, target, relay, and resource. And it's gonna send that. Small delay to ensure analytic is sent before navigation. Only opening in same tab. Mm-hmm. Small delay to ensure analytics is sent before navigation. Only is opening in the same tab. Send event and then navigate after a brief delay. Mm-hmm. Exactly. You're going to provide a particular custom anchor tag. Exactly. That custom anchor tag is now going to extract the data from it. All right, whether it's a start with HTTP or HTTPS. All right, which is say, hey, this is external, and if this is external, good. So I want you to keep track of that. Mm-hmm. So adding analytics is something that is quite involved, especially for those developers who don't know how to actually implement that for their own particular projects. The other is use locale analytics. I think this is a hooks because you want to actually now talk to the internationalization about that, which is exactly the navigation about that. You want to talk to the navigation about that, and then uh, when that happened, when the path and parent's name change, you want is to actually track that, track language switch. Only track if locale actually change. Mm. Patterns.locale. Use patterns here. From the next navigation. Okay. Track them only when they change. Only track if locale actually change here. Again, this is on the client side. Exactly. Use client. And when that change, when the current locale and the path name change, this is when I want you to now send that API request. Manual tracking function for language selector component. Track local change, track language switch. Manual tracking function for language selector components. Mm-hmm. Okay. Import, use page analytics, use local analytics. This is what the analytic wrapper this is the provider. This is the provider exactly. Use page analytics and use local analytics. Use page analytics and use locale analytics, which is something that we're going to import that and render children as is. So we're gonna use this analytic wrapper per component. Mm-hmm. Per page, man. Analytic wrapper. So I want you to add this wrapper per page. In our case, we only have is that for, well, it says that for the layout. Might be, okay. So it means that we are attaching is those particularly listeners or custom event into our own application. An external link, abstract external link. Which is now this track external link, and it's gonna say the resource name. Exactly. So this is now from the Huberman Lab and for the Grow Master. Okay, those particular tag. All right, all right. Let's replace the Coursera here. Would say the Coursera. I don't know why did I add the Coursera here. This to me is quite interesting. Give me a second. All right, and we are back. Good. Now, with that, all right, let's go now to test the build implementation. What the French toast got? Terminal. Okay. Please be my guest. Mm. There was an error here. Okay, kill the server. All right. So allegedly, and according to you, if I run now this and say npm run def, but what's wrong with you? I don't know what's the duplication. What's the code? Chill, chill, chill. So if I go to this, all right, and try to open out here with localhost and navigate to that, I'll be able to see here is, all right. However, if I deploy this, which because I don't have any, well, okay. So if I deploy this to production, or if I do is pmp run build, and then I ask Claw here, please create an HTTP server script to test build output. Or build product build production output. Because I want to use this PHP for that. All right. Or Python. I want to use Python for that. Use a single line. Use a single line inside of the package JSON script to test the okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. To test build production output locally. I need to be more precise here. I'll create a simple HTTP server script to test your production build output locally. Exactly. That's what it is. So it's doing this, checking the MIME type, and create server, handle root, trying to find file, no extension, trying HTML, check if file exists. The content types, not found. And the other is this. Again, this is a particular server from here. Oh, no, it's okay. No, okay. We already got that. So it means that I guess I get status here and remove that server and say git removing a recursive force weight server.js. How that not works? Oh, because allegedly the file doesn't exist, but it does. What are you? All right. So with that, all right, git status, we can say is this: git add everything from the on stage to the stage, okay, and therefore I want you to also add is this. So make a commit here where I want to add this and say add G4 tag. Is that add G4 via next uh, next via next what is it for development? I don't see that. I don't see here is next third party, exactly, via next third parties, exactly, add G4 via next third party and custom event. Okay, so once we already add those, and therefore I want to say, hey, create a PR via git Okay, with the changes all right, git push origin the analytics, that's right. Great, now let me create a PR using GitHub CLI. We already have that. That's why we install this. And it's this, right? Language switching for that, technical implementation, developing and testing. Okay. And all right. Good. Now, if we go to that PR, it already pushed that. Well, okay. That was too good to be true. And allegedly it works. So now I want to see if this truly works. So let me merge this. Confirm the merge. And if we now go to this one, we should be able to now start to track those changes as it is. So if we reload, come on, don't tell me that. You already did that. You already created that G attack. Okay. Let me inversal add the G4 tag to do so. Because that won't work unless I add that. So we'll need to make a new deployment for that. Is redeploy. But I want to provide now the environment variable. Got it? All right. So you must now rebuild the entire application or the entire project as it is. Promoted 1 minute ago. Yeah, but hmm. Well, anyway, in theory, we're supposed to add that, right? In theory. Mm, 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 mm. Exactly. Redeploy. Now, let's take a look at this and proof test. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, give me a second. I'll be right back.